Hello and welcome to the WriteCome.com podcast, where we help you to make money from your words. Each episode will be sharing tips, tricks, and strategies you can use to make more money from your writing, publishing, and marketing to your fans and audience. Let's get started with your host, Barry J. McDonald.
Hi, this is Barry here, and you are very, very welcome to today's podcast episode from WriteCome.com. And today's podcast episode is entitled Retired at 20. Now, I was listening to Gary Vee this morning, and as Gary Vee does in a lot of his content, he's constantly drumming into the listener that they have plenty of years left in their lives. Now, he can't guarantee that, and I'm sure he can't even guarantee it for himself, but he wants you to drum in the idea that if you are going to do something, and if you are going to do something great, it is going to take time. It's going to need to be built slowly. You're not going to build like some of those sales letters will tell you. You're not going to build $1 million business in one weekend. For you to build something that you can retire on, it's probably, as he would say, it's probably going to take the next 4, 5, maybe 6 years of your life to do that, showing up regularly. But by the end of that stage, you'll have something that you can retire on. You'll have a huge audience, and you'll have something that possibly you could hand on to your kids and your grandkids in the future. And when he does say that to some people, will look at him and say to Gary, well, Gary, I'm in my 50s or I am in my 60s, and for me to give up the next 5 or 6 years, can I really be guaranteed that I will have that at the end of it? But as he said, when you think about it, in the next 5, 6 or 7 years, if you keep doing what you are doing, what are you going to be guaranteed at the end of it? For a lot of us, those years are going to pass, but a lot of people are going to piss those years away, binging on Netflix and maybe out drinking and socializing and doing things that aren't going to move the needle in the right direction at all. Whereas, you could spend your time working on your business over the next couple of years, and because of that, then you are going to have something that you can be proud of. So that time is going to pass one way or the other. We're not guaranteed tomorrow, we're not guaranteed next week, but if you did have those years, if you did put the work in, you would have something you could be proud of at the end of it. And I was just thinking to myself as he was talking about that, in that a lot of people retire in their 20s. Now, I don't mean that they get a lottery win when they're 20 and they can go ahead and retire on a beach somewhere and can drink out of a coconut, but a lot of people will plan out their lives in their 20s, in that they will probably meet a partner at a certain age, or they will need to get married at a certain age, and then the next step is probably to buy a house, and then it's probably a certain number of kids, and then it's going to be this and it's going to be that, and maybe they're going to get a qualification out of school, and then they're going to go into a factory or a business, and they're going to live or work in that business for the next 30 years or 40 years, and then they're going to retire. And then by that stage of their lives, they're going to have grandkids, they may have some money to go on a little holidays and stuff like that, but they've planned everything out from their 20s. And unfortunately, a lot of us, maybe this is a generation thing, maybe it's my age group, I don't know, but a lot of us feel when we are coming up to our 50s, our 60s and our 70s, we almost feel that we have peaked. If I haven't achieved something by the age of 50, well, that means, unfortunately, that this life has just been wasted, and it's just a kind of a free fall or a freewheel up to the finish line, my last day here, whatever. But I'm not going to achieve anything from the age of 51 onwards, or 61 onwards, or 71 onwards, because I haven't done it before. And I just want you maybe to rethink on that. Is that really, really true? Now, when I do think back, years ago, I did have that same kind of belief in that, I have reached this certain point in my life, and this is the peak of my life. Nothing is going to get any better than this. I'm not going to achieve anything more than that. If I haven't built a business by now, it means I'm not going to build one in the future. And I did convince myself and dupe myself into that belief. Now, what I want to do right now is to do a little bit of experiment to prove that you can do a lot more than you can or have done in the past. Now, if you want to remember this domain name, it's writecome.com/5-day podcast. Now, what you'll find over there is a simple 5-day challenge I had created a year ago on how anyone can create a podcast. Now, what I show is how anyone, and I mean anyone with no knowledge of podcasting at all, how they can create a podcast and how they can build an audience. Now, I want you to think about that for a moment. If you did go over to that challenge, and if you did study it over the next 5 days, in 5 days from now, you could have a podcast. Now, while that mightn't seem like a big thing, if you are in maybe your 50s or 60s, I want you to think about that for a moment. You have just created a podcast and you've done that in 5 days. What else could you do in your life? And I want you maybe just to burst open that mental bubble or have a look at that belief that you have in your mind, thinking to yourself that your life has peaked, that there's nothing you can do in the future. There's no business, if you haven't created a business by now, or if you haven't started writing by now, or if you haven't set up a YouTube channel by now, or you haven't done anything by now. Does that really mean that it's over? So I want you to head over to that domain name. I want you to watch the videos over the next 5 days and I want you to put them into action. And as I said, by you doing this simple action of creating a podcast, it's going to open up a whole new world for you, in that hopefully when you do it, and I really hope that you actually do take the actions and do actually record your first podcast episode, it's going to blow that mental belief away. You're going to look around and you say to yourself, right, I'm suddenly a podcaster, and if I'm a podcaster, what else can I do? I could be a writer, I could turn on a video right now, and I could do this and I could do that. So what I want you to do is I want you to spend or think about how the next couple of years of your life could be the most productive ones of your life. Could be the ones where you start building that business, or start writing, or start recording, or do whatever it is. But I want you to ramp up those ideas in your head. I want you to think of it the opposite way, in that you were probably thinking, well, from this point here, it's all a kind of a gradual kind of free fall. It's a kind of I'm freewheeling up to the finish line of my life. I'm not going to achieve anything between now and then. I want you to think about it the opposite way. I want you to think this is going to be the day where you are going to skyrocket your actions, that you are going to create a podcast, and you are going to do this, and you are going to do that, and you are going to leave a kind of a legacy or a business, or you're going to leave something behind that people are going to look at you and say, wow, that's amazing. From this age in her 40s or 50s, or him in his 60s and 70s, suddenly turned around and became a podcast, or suddenly came around and became a fiction writer, or suddenly turned around and became, a huge audio, a huge face on YouTube or social media, whatever. I want you to have a look at that belief, because that belief unfortunately isn't serving you and it's holding you back. Now, as Gary said, the next couple of years in your life are going to pass, and you can piss it away, watching Netflix and listen to people who haven't achieved anything in their lives, or you can turn it around from this day onwards. So again, if you go over to rightcome.com/5-day podcast, I want you to take that challenge, and I want you to burst that mental limitation bubble in your head right now. And when you have recorded your first podcast episode, I want you to think about all the things you can do, and I want this moment to be the moment that you skyrocket and take on more challenges, and have a look at the things like, what you could do between now and, God forbid, at the end of the day, we are all going in the one direction. We're not all going to make it out of this life alive. But what could you achieve between now and then? And don't kind of limit yourself and think to yourself, well, I'm in my 50s or in my 60s, whatever, my best years are behind me. Your best years could be ahead of you. So head over to that domain name, start recording your first podcast episode, and hopefully I'll be able to see you, like myself, here on Anchor FM or iTunes or whatever, with your podcast. So as always, if you'd like to reach out to me, if you have any trouble at all, if you have any trouble maybe finding the domain name, or any questions at all on podcasting, certainly reach out to barryjmcdonald@gmail.com. And as always, if you'd like to maybe share this podcast episode with somebody else, or if you'd like to leave a review, again, that would really, really appreciate it. And as always, if you'd like to find more of the Rightcome content, if you do a search for #Rightcome, or go over to the main Rightcome site, that is writecome.com. And as always, thanks for sharing your time again today. Take care and have a great day. Bye-bye.
Thanks for joining us today. If you'd like more from the rightcome.com podcast, be sure to subscribe now for more tips, tricks, and ideas you can use to make more money from your words. See you in the next episode.